Welcome to the Painting of the Week podcast, where we look at some of the most significant paintings throughout history. Introducing your hosts, Phil Grabsky and Laura Bentham.
Yes, folks. You know what time of year it is. It's Christmas, and it's the Christmas podcast special.
That is the smallest bell.
That is the size of a pea. Anyway, it's the annual Painting of the Week podcast special. But don't look back to see if we've ever done it before, because we haven't. This is our first. And
First proper one, proper Christmas one.
somebody suggested doing a podcast Christmas special, and we thought, great idea. So we're going to do it. I'm going to put that down now.
Yeah.
And welcome. So, happy Christmas to one and all. And if you're listening to this next summer on the beach, then I hope you had a great Christmas, or you're looking forward to next Christmas. Either way, what Laura and I are going to do is we have separately... By the way, hello, Laura.
Oh, all right, Phil.
We have separately chosen our top 3 paintings of the year, and we're going to reveal them in reverse order, 3, 2, 1, over the course of the next, 30, 40 minutes. And I don't know what Laura's chosen, and she doesn't know what I've chosen.
And I think you might have to say there might be a few technical problems.
There may be technical moments as we move along.
Because I've got mine on all sorts of different pieces of paper and sort of spread out.
That's all right. Our audience know that you work off plenty of bits of paper with multicolours. And
I've got scrap notes here, Phil. Yours is organised.
You're also surrounded by multiple materials.
Yes. Yes, I am
Needles,
actually.
threads.
That's quite handy, actually, because that helps with
Okay.
one of my paintings.
Now, what I would also say is that at 7th-art.com, or indeed on the YouTube channel of 7th Art Productions, you will find, as we talk about them, the pictures will be revealed, so you can have a look at them too whilst we talk about them. And naturally, we hope you're sitting down with your family and encouraging them and the in-laws, grandchildren, aunts and uncles. You're all sitting around. I mean, I think this could become a Christmas tradition up there with the Queen's speech.
That feels like some kind of 50s scene. Everyone's sitting around the radio.
Come on, family. It's the Painting of the Week annual Christmas podcast. Children.
Oh, no.
Must we? Yes, you must.
Oh.
Not again. Yeah. We used to have
Ring that bell.
We used to have fun because obviously the tradition was 3 p.m. the Queen's speech.
Mm.
I was constitutionally unable to watch the Queen's speech in silence.
Oh, okay.
My parents would go absolutely nuts. And then if my sister was there, it was chaos because we just made jokes and that didn't go down well.
Oh, that's so sweet, actually, because they always were a little bit serious, weren't they? And I love all that.
It would take certainly halfway through the main Christmas lunch that followed before everyone calmed down. Anyway, we won't be having any of that. So let's, with no further ado, I'm going to kick off.
Are you? Okay, cool.
Which means that ultimately the final number one will be yours.
Okay.
I'm going to start with a painting by Edward Hopper called Automat. And I'm going to show, I think Laura might recognise this one.
I do. I do. And it's, yeah.
Edward Hopper painted this in 1927. So as I said, you can see this on the podcast button on the 7th-art.com website or on our YouTube channel. I think this is absolutely fantastic as a painting. So I'll tell you why it's one of my top 3. When we made the Hopper film, which was actually not this year, but the year before, although it's in my mind a little bit because for those of you listening to this, I mean, I guess you're listening to it now in you're going to be listening to it in the end of 2023, of course. So if you're in the United States, then January the 2nd, on PBS, in the American Masters Strand, the 50-minute version of our Hopper film is being shown. which is great. It's very prestigious, and we're very honoured. And the key image that most people know, and we've used in the poster and the advertising, is Nighthawks, which is the 4 a.m. diner. And I think this is also one of those great pictures that people probably recognise by Edward Hopper, even if you don't know that much about the artist and his biography, which is why we made the film. What are we looking at here? Well, oftentimes people have talked about this young woman sitting on her own, drinking a cup of coffee, and they've talked about it in the sense of who's not there, the absent male.
Okay.
The sense that she's waiting for somebody, and that dark chair is obviously the chair that the man she's waiting for either hasn't arrived yet, or indeed hasn't arrived at all and has no intention of doing so. So people read into it absence and sadness in a way. There is actually a completely different reading of it, which is that she's just enjoying a cup of coffee on her own, and she's enjoying being out on her own. Now, this is when it helps to know about Edward Hopper's own biography. Hopper was a complex man, at times certainly not an easy man, as the film explains and portrays. You can't really understand Edward Hopper without understanding the relationship with his wife. She also was a painter, and they became a team, really. Okay. She essentially put her own career on a back burner to promote and encourage and help him. Sometimes he was grateful and gracious, and plenty of times he wasn't. And I think that at times that even veered into what we might now think of as mental abuse, and sometimes even, pulled her out of cars if she wasn't parking properly. I mean, he's, there's elements of him that are not great, obviously.
I didn't know that.
But they basically, as far as we know, woke up in the same bed every day for 50 odd years, length of their marriage. And, when I called the film An American Love Story, it has a duality of meaning. It's partly about his love for America. And why Hopper's important is that this is a time when artists are not thinking about painting the Seine or painting European scenes or going off to Italy and painting the Colosseum. They're looking at their own world. They're looking at America and what America means, and trying to define America as distinct from the old world of Europe. But it's also a love story. I called it American Love Story because it is a love story between him and his wife. But it's a complicated one.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is when he did Nighthawks and that painting, were they a series?
No. So what's interesting, and incidentally, she is basically his only model that he ever uses.
Okay.
And to some extent, she insisted upon that. She basically said, "You're not painting any other woman."
Right. Okay. Fair.
And he acquiesced.
Yeah.
We recently made a film about Klimt where he's painting dozens and dozens of women, and I can't imagine a woman saying to him, "You can't. You can only paint me," and him accepting that.
No.
Hopper does. So every woman you see in his paintings, with one or two exceptions, but most women in his paintings are Jo. Now, and she had actually been, for a short period, she had been an actress, and so she had some experience of that. The thing about Hopper, which is interesting, and again it's reflected in the film, is that to begin with, like all artists really, he's learning his craft. He goes off to Paris, and those paintings he does in Paris are clearly influenced by the Impressionists, so he's got a particular impressionistic style, if you like. He comes back to the United States, does a painting which doesn't go down well. He only really sells one painting for a period of 10 years. Meets Jo in a place called Gloucester, and then starts doing some watercolours. She helps him get into a show with his watercolours. Anyway, his career takes off, but he also becomes a very, very fine etcher, works in black and white, and does all sorts of things. Then he finds this particular style.
Right.
These kind of oil paintings, often at night, reflecting individuals lost in their own thoughts. It's no coincidence that he's supposed to have been, or I've read that he was the most used artist during COVID to illustrate people, isolated at home, maybe working alone in an office. Unlike other artists, like Picasso, like Rembrandt, Vermeer actually, who constantly reinventing, constantly experimenting, constantly trying new things. To some extent, Hopper finds this style of painting, these very, very carefully thought through, prepared and executed oil paintings, and sticks with it. So this, for example, it's a good, 15, 16 years before Nighthawks.
Oh, okay.
But actually, it's
ages before.
Yeah, but it's a very similar storyline, or very similar kind of style. So the automat. It's quite interesting. It's called the automat. The automat was you'd go into these places and there would basically be a dispensing machine, which might have pies in there or something savoury. You put a quarter in and you take the pie out. He doesn't show any of that. He doesn't even show it in reflection. You only know it's an automat because it's called automat.
So is that the only way you get your food?
Yeah.
So someone else will make you drinks, unlimited tea and coffee, but the only way you get your food... Because have you seen that pizza machine outside? There's loads of them now, where you put your money into a pizza machine and out comes a pizza. And I always thought, there's one outside the station. I thought, oh, who would ever use that? But then it must have come from one of those then.
Partly, although, we've made films in the past about Roman history. And it wasn't automated, but I mean, Romans in their apartment blocks, they didn't have cooking facilities, so they were always out eating on the street and eating fast food.
Right.
If you go to Pompeii or Herculaneum, Ostia, you see the fast food bars, which are basically marble tops and then holes where the amphorae would go, and in there would be soup.
Right.
And then there'd be another space for the bread. And basically you go, I'll give you some soup, Brab, here you go. Here's your sister, Sai, and off you go.
I didn't know that.
But what's interesting about this, though, is that this is a single woman that's out on her own. She's not being chaperoned. She's not with her friends. And this does mark, a change in society. So on the one hand, though Hopper's known for being quite controlling of his wife, although she spoke up for herself and she was also very outspoken too, that doesn't mean that he only reflects women in diminished situations. I agree with the idea that she's just enjoying a cup of coffee on her own, having a bit of time and a bit of space, maybe after work, and that it isn't that she's been stood up. I also just love the way that it's painted. It's so clever. So behind her is the window.
Oh, right, yeah.
There's nothing on the window. There's no text or anything. You can't see any of the world beyond it, which would be distracting. So you're not seeing, as you would do in real life, you would probably see a street light, street lights or cars going past or shops. None of that. All you see reflected are the ceiling lights from inside the automat. Brilliant. I mean, it's just such a clever idea. And actually, if you look carefully too, the way everything is painted, it's very beautifully rendered. I mean, that radiator, the chairs, her hat.
What's that bowl with just behind her with the red? Is that what's in that?
I've always assumed it's kind of dry, some form of dried flour.
Flowers. Okay. Funnily enough, the window, the lights going, is almost like you're going into a tunnel.
And the thing about Hopper, which I really like as a filmmaker, is that he's working in narratives. He's working with stories. All his paintings offer you something of a story, but not all of it. He's encouraging you deliberately. He's not giving you all the answers. He's encouraging you to think what's going on here, what's just happened, what's going to happen. And sometimes that's actually even in the way that he paints. So there are some paintings where your eye is taken right through the frame because of a horizontal line. It's almost like you've just missed the frame before, and you've just missed you obviously haven't seen the frame that's coming. You've just stopped the film, and this is the picture in that one split second. sometimes if you really stop and stare, things don't quite make sense. A door might be too large or a chair might be too small. In this case, if you think about it, you almost don't question it at first. And if you do think about it, you think, well, surely I'd see something through that window.
Yeah.
And then it can't just be a black. I mean, my mind immediately tells me that's a window with a reflection on it. But maybe, what else could it be? Could the blinds be down, but then you wouldn't have the reflection? So it's
Yeah. And if it was cars are going past and things like that, then you start doing
but he's
all sorts of... You had to go to the weather then.
But he's not included any of it because it's not relevant.
No.
And then finally, it's just his use of colour. The blues and the blacks, the oranges and the greens, blues and yellows, the opposite colours, greens and oranges. This is a man, like all great artists, that really studied art. So there's many possible choices with Hopper. There's many of these great New York oil paintings. But for me, this is one that I'm really attached to and is my 2023
Number three. So good.
Laura, over to you.
Yeah, 'cause I'm slightly concerned, actually, Phil, as to how much detail you went into, obviously, with your
but I've done
painting.
Now you can be broad stroke.
Okay.
General.
Because as always, I'm slightly a little bit more rough around the edges.
This is...
So I've got my sister Wendy's 1000 masterpiece. Sister Wendy was quite something, wasn't she?
Sister Wendy was quite something. And I know some people who work with Sister Wendy.
Really?
And I don't think this will get me into trouble when I say that Sister Wendy, she was a nun, but she enjoyed her creature comforts. So she was quite keen to, like, when she was filming, that she was well fed and had somewhere comfortable to be.
Okay.
Good
well,
on
there
her.
we are.
What do I have to Sister Wendy?
I gave this to someone as a present, and they gave it back to me. So it's even better. And that was my
What, the
father-in-law.
following
year? Yeah. Well, no, actually, just like this year. Anyway, so my painting is Surprise by Henri Rousseau.
Henri Rousseau, Tiger in a Tropical Storm.
Yes.
And hopefully that's
here's all my notes.
Fantastic. Hopefully this has now come up on the site.
Well, let's hope so.
Various sites.
So I have got it, but I thought it looked nice in the book.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd be nice to have it in a book. And it's the only one I could find in a book. So Sister Wendy did me proud. So the reason I'm picking this is I have a lot of pinch me kind of moments, Phil. And this is a bit weird, but you got me involved in a project this year in the summer, which was brilliant. And you was, Laura, would you like to get involved in this project? Which involved me going to the National Gallery. Mm. So no one's going to be surprised, probably not, that I'd never been there before. I just hadn't. It's just one of those things. My childhood was Science Museum, Natural History, things like that, summer exhibition. So I got off the train at Victoria, walked past Big Ben. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I'm really going to go and do some work in the National Gallery. It's a bit of a moment for me. And so I walked in and it was just sensory overload. I was like, I haven't got a clue what I'm doing in here, what these paintings are. And I just thought, I'm going to be at least 10 years in here before I would know all the stories, the brushstroke things, the answers to questions, biblical stories. I mean, it's just fascinating and brilliant, and I loved every minute of it. And I went up, didn't I, probably 4 or 5 times. Fantastic. So, for me, I came across surprise. And it was just like, okay, can breathe a bit easier now. I think I can understand this painting. I don't think I need to have a book about it to understand it. It was just a fun painting, with my eyes. The reason I liked it so much is because it had an exclamation mark, which is a bit weird. Surprised exclamation mark. Because once I went to Westward Ho in Devon, and it's the only town which has an exclamation mark. And so I was standing there in front of the painting thinking, oh, I wonder how many other
Does this
paintings.
one too?
Yes, it has an exclamation mark.
Ah, because it doesn't in the
on
book.
The surprise. No.
Oh,
Sister Wendy, she's put it as Tiger in a Tropical Storm.
Ah, but in the National Gallery.
Yeah.
Tiger in a Tropical Storm, exclamation mark.
Yes. So I was like, that intrigued me straight away.
It's a slightly odd place to put an exclamation mark, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tiger in a tropical storm.
No, it's just surprised!
Oh.
Exclamation mark.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, that's the name of the...
But then I started looking at it, and obviously we were doing today, and I thought, sort of a good look, and Henry Rousseau, and find out about him. And he wasn't trained. He just did his own thing. What I like about him, he was very confident in doing his own thing because nobody really liked him. He was really ridiculed. Everyone was, no, forget about it. He's a naive painter. What is naive? I don't know. And I just thought, okay, fair enough.
I'm
He's in a
surprised
room with all these other people
Yeah.
now. And he was always so confident. But the painting itself, apparently, he made up lots of stories. He was, who knows whether they were true or not, but people said he didn't really ever leave Paris. So he did most of his paintings from the Botanical Gardens in Paris.
Oh, so you've gone to the zoo.
Yeah, where there was stuffed animals and some other smaller animals.
Okay.
So a lot of the plants would not be in the jungle. And I mean, there's one right at the forefront of the painting, which apparently is a house plant.
The front right.
Yeah. But nobody ever mentions the tiger. That they say he's surprising somebody, but I think that the tiger looks surprised. He looks terrified.
He's surprised by that pot plant. What's that doing here? Why is there a pot plant in my jungle?
Rousseau's come along,
Who's left that there?
popped it in, but then he's on he's on that plant. The plant isn't bending.
Yeah.
There's not really any shadow there, but
Maybe the surprise is you're taking a walk and tiger springs out.
but even when
It's funny with the trees because they obviously don't get trees like that, do you, in a jungle? Not that I've ever seen.
apparently no. All of it is made up, which is wonderful because the colours are lovely. It's obviously a storm, and
Maybe the rain's a surprise. Maybe that's a surprise. Sudden squall.
But when I read up on it, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, the tiger is surprising people or something." So it doesn't look that to me. He looks the other way round.
Oh yeah, he looks.
Terrified. But it was fun
Well, he looks surprised.
in the National Gallery coming across that painting because it felt like I could sort of relax. If I was with children, I would probably take them to that painting initially to sort of, and then I could say, "Oh well, this is tiger in a jungle."
So that's very interesting because you've seen. Well, we know the 640 paintings hanging on the walls,
obviously.
and of all of those, this is the one that's most struck you.
It's not the one that most struck me.
Ah, okay.
I think there would be more other ones, but some of the other ones I didn't want to pick because, well, A, you've got the project coming up, and B, I don't think I could do them justice and some of the stories that were involved.
But maybe this is the one that you most associate with the joy of going that day.
But also maybe I could associate with the fact that he was not trained.
Yeah.
If you and I hadn't been friends, you probably wouldn't have asked me to go into the project. If you think about the people who you have around you and work with you, then, I mean, I've got 2 O-levels.
It's not about that. Laura.
No, but do you know what I mean, though, Phil? He was really, really super confident in himself. What I did at the National Gallery, I loved. It was one of them. I just loved it so much.
And one of the things that comes through, and you've helped to find these people, is the consistent comment from people that we're now filming right now. We did our first one 2 days ago.
Right.
Is how important it is that first trip with a school, with a parent, relative, whatever. It's like so many things. You need somebody who's going to just take your hand for the first time.
Yeah.
So like you went once, it's like, and then you've been like back 5 times.
Oh yeah.
But nobody took you through that door. And it is an imposing building.
Oh, it's amazing.
You have to go up the steps, and you're thinking that's not. But sorry, I got to share this with you. Here's a surprising thing.
Here's a surprise.
Somebody the other day said, very, very nice guy that we know, 28 years old, smart guy. We happened to mention Once in Royal David City, the carol.
Yeah.
And he said he'd never heard it.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's like, how can you grow up in the United Kingdom and not hear Once in Royal David City?
Yeah.
But again, then you start analysing it a little bit in your own head and you think, well, if schools are getting very nervous about playing
exactly.
carols because maybe it's too Christian and they just stick to the... And I guess if you don't watch, carols from kings at Christmas and something...
Exactly.
And it's not played in your house...
Well, you don't know how people's lives have gone, do you?
Maybe you can get to 28 with never having heard Once in Royal David City.
But then you could also get to, I'm not going to say how old, obviously, and not been to the National Gallery.
Well,
I mean, I live
an
hour away from it, and I've just never been.
Well, I mean, it's easy to do. I bet you we're in Brighton. I bet you the majority of people living in Brighton have ever been to the art gallery here.
No, probably not. But it was,
or even in the pavilion. Even better example.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got this extraordinary building right in the heart of Brighton, which looks like it's just come out of Agra or Delhi or somewhere. And you'd think, surely your human curiosity must make you think, what is this building and what's inside?
Yeah.
But I bet most people just go straight past.
Yeah.
Don't give it a second thought.
Definitely should go and have a look at it.
Right.
In actual fact, the colours of that would remind me a bit of the pavilion. Look how many notes I had. It's so good.
Is there anything on your notes?
No, there's actually nothing else on my notes because I have really been going for this film. So I've enjoyed every minute of it. Finding three things is tricky.
That our audience would like to hear. Now's your moment.
No,
all right.
But I really love. I don't know. Do you really like Rousseau? Is it somebody that you like?
I don't know Rousseau well enough to answer that.
Okay.
I like that painting.
It's cute, isn't it?
Right.
Okay.
I do like his style. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
But now move on.
Yeah.
My number 2.
Oh.
And hopefully this has now just come up, is Woman Reading a Letter by Johannes Vermeer.
I'm excited that you've picked Vermeer. I knew you were going to pick Vermeer.
Yes, I did think about having this as my number 1 because obviously the film has done so well.
I actually thought you were going to have this as number 1, so I'm really, really intrigued now.
That's why I didn't, because I don't want to be predictable. And
That's so good.
It's also possible that I just made a mistake. No.
Okay, here we go.
No. So
this is actually my favourite podcast so far.
Good. The film Vermeer, The Greatest Exhibition, has really been very successful, and that's very nice because obviously some of our films are not quite so successful. It all goes back in the pot. It all goes towards future films. And a couple of days ago, the Vermeer film was actually shown in full on ITV. So like our most commercial station, their one art film of the year was our film on Vermeer.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Which is great.
You must be so over the moon about that film.
I absolutely love the works of Vermeer. And one of the questions that comes up, of course, is, why was this exhibition so popular? They limited it, the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, limited sales to 650,000 tickets. And so the story goes, the minute they went on sale, within 2 days, they'd sold them all and the website crashed and no. And then it became like, how do we get tickets for this? So it became a news story, which I think is part of the reason why the film did well, because, I went on to the Today Show. It's like the main BBC Radio 4 news show in Britain. And I think if it wasn't a news story, i.e. why is this exhibition so popular? Why are people paying thousands of euros on websites to get tickets, black market? But somebody also pointed out to me that if you ask people who is your favourite painter, not many would necessarily say Vermeer. So what is it? So why is everyone rushing to this exhibition when people would probably choose a Monet or a Van Gogh or somebody else as their favourite artist? Well, part of the reason, of course, is scarcity. There are only, there's some debate about one or two, but basically 37 paintings. And they got 28 for this exhibition, which is extraordinary because nobody really wants to lend their Vermeers because they're so valuable and people want to go to the their own national galleries and see them.
Yeah, yeah.
But for various reasons, I won't go into here, the Rijksmuseum did very well, got 28 of them. So it was a once in a lifetime, not in his lifetime, and never again will 28 of his paintings be in the same building. It simply won't happen again.
What, because people can't get them again?
Well, for example, the Frick in New York.
Yeah.
The bequest really is that these paintings never travel.
Oh, okay.
A bit like the Barnes, paintings have to stay in that building. In fact, in the Barnes, they basically have to stay as on the position on the wall as they were when Barnes died. So even taking a painting down is a bit of an issue.
Oh, okay.
But certainly they never travel. They did once, but that caused a fuss. The Frick was undergoing renovations in New York, and the Rijksmuseum were very clever. This is years ago, 5-6 years ago. They said, look, while the Frick is closed, can we please borrow your Vermeer paintings? And they managed to get the Frick to say yes. So they managed to get 28 of the 37. It was a beautifully put together exhibition. Paintings were given a lot of space, but they had these wonderful curtains hanging down. It was very well lit, very well organised. But more to the point is that actually, and of course, while we were making a film and it's in Ultra HD and all the rest of it, there is no substitute to seeing paintings for yourself. And we're lucky as filmmakers. I mean, we work hard to be lucky, but we get to see the paintings when there aren't big crowds of visitors.
Yeah, brilliant.
But this is a painting that we've had in our office for 20 years, hanging on the wall, a copy of, obviously. This particular colour has always been my favourite colour. To me, it's a fantastic mix of the craft of painting, but also history, and I've loved those two things. You know, the story, again, Vermeer's a master storyteller, like I was saying about Hopper. So you look at it, nothing's by accident. So what is going on? She's reading a letter. Oh, so that tells you so much. So who's the letter from? Is it from a husband who's perhaps, the Netherlands was extremely wealthy at this point, which is why it was able to commission and buy so much art. It's wealthy because of its naval abilities. It was travelling particularly to, say, Southeast Asia, bringing back spices, which had huge value, building all these wonderful houses on the canals. The houses had all these blank walls. They needed paintings. So the Dutch Golden Age produces about 5 million paintings to fulfill this. These things always have economic background. But, so within that letter, maybe her husband or father perhaps is one of these sailors who's hundreds, maybe thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
It's not known if she's pregnant.
No.
It's possible.
Yep. No one's ever going to ask her.
We'll never know. She certainly would. It's plausible, or she could just be slightly larger. But again, there's no accidents. He's done it deliberately. So maybe it's someone within his own household, because he had a lot of children, Vermeer. We know that much. If you look really closely, though, and then you've got the maps in the background. Again, maps tell you an awful lot because they talk about adventure and exploration and trade and commerce and places that the Dutch own and places that the Dutch trade with. Japan, for example, was a completely closed society, except they did do a little bit of trade with the Netherlands.
Okay.
And actually, there's some fantastic researchers, including one of the curators in this exhibition. He's actually found the actual map that Vermeer's copied.
Really?
It's not an imaginary.
That one on the wall?
Yes, it's not an imaginary map.
Brilliant.
And he finds those kind of things, or the paintings that Vermeer sometimes has in the background. This curator will say, well, that's that painting, and it's now in that museum. Again, the way it's painted, if you get close, and you probably see it better in the film, he is a master of light. And in fact, somebody else in the film says he's a master of colour. It's not like just blanket white, those walls. There's so much going on. There's so much in the detail. His shadowing is just fantastic. But there's one particular detail that one of the conservators talks about in the film. which is really interesting, and it's hard to see in a little picture, but you'll see it in the film. The back of her cloak is like a blue line there. And what he's actually done is he's painted from her back all the way to the right, to the edge. The wall is initially done in blue.
Oh, okay.
And then what he does is he paints the white, the plaster white, across it, all the way up to, but not quite, to the back, to her back. So he leaves a line of the darker blue background.
Oh, right.
And then her cloak is a lighter blue, though it's a bit darker on the back because of shading.
Yeah, yeah.
If you look closely, you have this dark single line of blue. And it just gives this effect of it's kind of shimmering, this kind of light flickering on the back. It just distinguishes it, gives a form. It's so clever. And the suggestion, of course, is that doing it that way rather than just painting a line of blue after the event somehow makes it work better. So somehow it's part of the magic. And you wouldn't notice it. You just look at the painting and and your brain subconsciously might be seeing something going on, but consciously you need to be drawn to details like that.
So you learnt that from
the conservator in the film,
Okay.
talking about that.
I mean, I love that statement. You always learn something new every day.
Oh, yeah.
And you really, really do. So is that why you picked that painting, Phil? Out of all those paintings?
Out of all the paintings, I picked it because to me, this is a real person who's living, 300 and whatever, 60 years ago, and who is, you then start to create narratives. To me, she is pregnant.
Yes.
That is a letter that's come from this is a wealthy woman, so I assume that he may be one of the officers on board a ship that is at this moment sailing around the Cape, heading off to Java. And this might be the last letter that he sends, which has somehow made its way back on a ship going the other direction. I mean,
It's funny, isn't it? How there's no story. Are there any stories? Does anyone know anything about?
No.
What about some of his other paintings?
No.
Are there none at all?
No.
He didn't write things down at all.
No.
It's funny that, isn't it? How some artists keep loads and loads of diaries.
Yeah, nothing.
I wonder why. Does anyone know?
No.
How funny.
There's no correspondence, which means that
It's all down to our imagination then.
Well, a lot of the biography is revealed by the paintings.
Yeah.
But then you also have to start, putting things together yourself. There's also continuation in his paintings. There are similarities in 5 of the paintings. I think his model wears this kind of yellow cloak with a fur-lined. Pearls appear. There's pearls in this one.
There's loads of pearls, isn't there?
Reading letters. There's another beautiful painting, which is girl reading a letter.
I like them. The lace maker.
Lace maker's
Oh,
brilliant.
I love that.
I mean, he's an extraordinary
They are
artist.
all very simple scenes. I have to say, actually, your film, it was amazing, and I always love the people that you have in it because I love their passion.
Yeah, they were really good.
They were, and the passion that they have for those paintings, because you don't always know about how you're going to feel about things, and someone will just explain one little detail, and then it's just like, oh yeah, I really see that.
And I think part of the appeal of Vermeer is that, and this is, again, you have to understand the history of the Netherlands at that time. This is not a Catholic country, so they're not, painters are not being, like Raphael and Leonardo, Michelangelo, are being employed to paint religious scenes. Caravaggio a bit shortly before Vermeer. So it's crucifixions and it's depositions where he's been taken down from the cross. It's ascensions. It's very religious.
Yeah.
It's not what the Dutch were about.
No.
So the Dutch were doing domestic scenes, pouring milk, lace making, reading a letter, playing a musical instrument. And that perhaps connects with us much more. Her longing to be with her partner.
Yeah.
This might be 4 centuries ago, but it's no different to how, in this scenario, a young woman would, maybe people are getting letters less, but the communication might have changed, but you still miss somebody in the same way.
So he's just painting what he sees nearly always.
No, he constructs it in his head.
But he doesn't get commissions. He wouldn't get like the lace maker.
Well,
you wouldn't necessarily get a commission for that, would you?
Preface the answer by saying a lot's unknown.
Okay.
But in broad terms, it's possible that there's certain paintings that were commissioned. We know that a local baker, for example, liked the work very much.
Okay.
And there's certainly paintings that he painted and then hoped to sell.
Oh, right, okay.
And I would think that it's probably more of the latter.
Right.
And I think that often the models are his own family.
Yes.
And, why he only paints 37... I mean, it obviously takes him a long time to paint a painting, but he could have painted more. Some artists do hundreds and some artists do thousands of paintings. So he's only done 37. He's also a very busy man. I think he's also an art dealer. He's also very involved in the religious community.
But he did have a lot of children as well.
And he had a lot of children, and
I mean, we all know what that's like.
It takes up a lot of time. And I suspect he wasn't just leaving it to his wife, who half the time was pregnant in bed, probably.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my number 2.
Oh, yes, because we've got to try and go a bit faster, haven't we?
Well, we want to try and get done by
end
of the year. Poor people are waiting for their Christmas lunch.
I don't know if you know this lady. My next one then is a lady. She's called Beza Butler.
I have never seen that before.
Okay.
Wow.
And this, funnily enough, has an exclamation mark in it. I seem to have a theme at the moment. Don't tread on me, goddamn, let's go. This is the Harlem Hellfighters. And Beza Butler is a textile artist from America. And I absolutely love her. For all the reasons of, I love fabric, as you know, if you took a photo of what's next to me. I love bits of fabric. My life is fabric. If I find a piece of fabric on the floor, I would make something from it sometimes. I'm so inspired by it. So what Beza does, she gets historical... I want to get this all right because I don't want to do any... I want no disrespect here to her at all because I don't... If I was here interviewing, it'd be so much easier. But I want to try and make sure I get this right. She's American artist. She gets historical photographs and she will then create what I call... these just extraordinary pieces of fabric, textile pieces, quilts, and... to give each person a voice. So this one is the Harlem Hellfighters. And they were... I'm going to get this all perfect if I can. They were...
First World War, isn't it?
Yes. The 369th Infantry Regiment of World War One. They were obviously all black soldiers. They were not allowed to be part of the sending off when they went. They were sent to France because the white soldiers wouldn't fight with them.
Oh, that's outrageous.
191 days in combat they did in France, with the longest ever regiment in the war. And for that, they got the highest military honour from the French government, which is the Cross of War, the Croix de Guerre.
Croix de Guerre.
Yeah, and they got that in 1918. And they did come back, actually, to a hero's welcome.
Oh, good.
Yeah, back to New York, and it was really amazing. When they turned onto the streets of Harlem, apparently, everyone went absolutely crazy. And there's really nice footage of it. But also what I love about her pieces are, she picks fabric. I just think I can relate to this, actually, because I don't know how, I can paint, but I can't paint like Vermeer. I certainly can't make pieces like Beza, but what I love about it is I can totally understand how much time she would have put into all of these. Each one of the fabrics, I go closer, has, they're from Africa.
All right.
Because she wants to represent, obviously, from her African roots. And some of them have birds on them, which will be for freedom. She's got every single one of these soldiers with a medal on, but she will spend hours and hours and hours finding fabrics. And I honestly think that if you have time, look at some of her other work, her other pieces, they're just beautiful.
So it's not a photograph. I mean, the whole thing is constructed with fabrics.
It's all fabric, but the original idea and the original inspiration comes from a photograph. And she does...
But she hasn't transferred the photograph in some way onto the material and then
No.
cut around.
No. She cuts each...
Wow.
She does make a sketch.
Yeah.
But every single piece of fabric, she cuts out, moves around.
Fabulous.
I mean, I spent hours. I spent hours on my things. But you would spend absolutely hours on that piece. It's huge. It's 11 feet wide. It's in the Smithsonian American Art Museum. Have you been there?
Yeah, but I am...
Okay, I've never been there. No. But it's her colours, everything about her work I love. So I don't think, I've looked, I couldn't see anything that she's been out over here at all for an exhibition. But if she does...
It's funny, in the American Art Museum...
I'll be at the door.
Mind you, I went specifically looking for a couple of hoppers they have, but I don't remember seeing it. And you wouldn't forget that.
Well, this is, I think it's one of her newer pieces.
Ah, okay.
So, yeah. But all at Christmas.
Still Christmas.
But all of her pieces are all bright colours, vibrant.
Brilliant, love it.
On all the fabrics, she has obviously beautiful pictures of... there's a lovely painting. One of them, I call them paintings, but they're not. They're pieces, I suppose she would say. I don't really know. Quilts. They are quilts because they are all backed and they are all sewn individually. So
Top choice, love that.
good.
Right, my
Cool.
number one.
I've got a feeling it might be the same as mine.
I'll be gobsmacked if we've chosen the same.
What am I
picture.
going to do if it's the same artist? Do we want to say? Do you want me to say?
It'll just be a testimony to that artist, won't it?
Okay.
Okay, so my number one artist actually is John Singer Sargent.
Okay.
Is yours?
Yes.
All right, well, my number one painting is Miss Elsie Palmer.
Okay. No.
Yours? Oh, okay. So, Miss Elsie Palmer.
Should we do you want to do a combination for the finale?
No, you take the final.
Okay. It's funny that we
Well-
both picked. Because we could now do a combination. It's
Oh,
a
yeah,
bit
okay.
weird that we have picked the same.
All right, so they can be side by side.
Yeah.
What's yours then?
El Jaleo.
Oh, of course, yeah. Actually, that crossed my mind too.
So I had
Yeah.
to because up until now, Phil,
Yeah.
it was my absolute favourite podcast that we did.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved it so much.
It's. So I just saw that in Boston. It's great in situ.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Because then I thought
Yeah.
I can ask you loads of questions. So,
Okay, well, so it was. So there's an exhibition that we've just filmed in Boston at the Museum of Fine Arts. It's still on actually for a few more days, I think, till January maybe, and it's called. They've called it in Boston, Fashioned by Sargent.
okay.
It's coming to the Tate early 2024,
Oh, yes.
where I think it's going to be called Sargent and Fashion.
I think I did see that advertised, actually.
And we're making a film which is about John Singer Sargent, and we're calling it John Singer Sargent, Fashion and Swagger. Now, it was hard work, I'll be honest, gaining access to this exhibition in Boston. It wasn't a gallery that we'd made a film with before, and so they had questions and they weren't sure and this, that and the other, and it was difficult. And then there's technical issues, and it was a fuss. And actually, when you get into that conversation where it's all about, we're not even sure we're going to be allowed to film it, and how many paintings, and clearing the issues, and
Right, yeah.
it's expensive going to the United States is so expensive for us, coming from Europe at least.
Yeah.
You can start to forget, you forget to ask yourself or remind yourself, actually, what really counts is how great is this exhibition? How good is the exhibition? How sound is the narrative that's going to happen? So it's always a real thrill when you actually get to the place and you go into the exhibition for the first time, and suddenly all the other stuff fades away, and it's like, okay, right, this is what we work so hard for. It's to see, in this case, these paintings, and in this case, these costumes, dresses, in this order, in these rooms, under these lighting conditions, etc., etc. And I have to say, because there was moments when this whole project was a bit touch and go. We went through, David, the director, David Bickerstaff, and I, when we went through, it was like, this is great.
Yeah.
And these paintings, John Singer Sargent really is something special. Now, he's not so well known in the UK and in Europe, and I hope the film changes that, because he deserves to be just as well known as all the other artists of the end of the 19th century.
Well, I didn't know him. And now he's my number one.
He's your number one. In the United States, he's better known. And we are, although the focus is a little bit on the kind of the fashion side of his work and how he and his sitters are constructing an image, constructing a way they want to be seen between them, and even to the extent that he might choose what they wear and how they wear it and how he paints it. And that's got very contemporary connections, which we talk about in the film, about how people present themselves deliberately.
Yeah.
All of us do it practically all the time. And funny enough, I saw a very interesting line, was it last night, where somebody said, present yourself how you wish to be, not necessarily how you are. I don't know. Anyway, it's still today, people are obviously very hooked into fashion.
Yeah.
But that's not all about John Singer Sargent. I think his Venice, his watercolours are just, I mean, they're magical. They're the kind of works you look at them and you think, I'm looking at something which is so sound as a representation of Venice or Carrara marble quarry, but it's just strokes of a brush, and it's just watercolour.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely mind-boggling. Gast, one of his probably his most famous painting in the United Kingdom, which is in the Imperial War Museum, of these soldiers that are kind of holding onto each other's shoulders as they're being led out of the battlefield, having been gassed. Oh. And El Jaleo, which we'll talk about just briefly. Now, in the exhibition, when you walk through, there are some major works in there. Madam X, which is our poster image.
That's in there?
That's in there.
Oh, okay.
And which is normally at the Met. There's all sorts of wonderful, wonderful paintings. But you come into the third room, and as you walk in, on your right-hand side, and this I'm speaking for David as well, there is this painting that neither of us had seen before, I have to admit it, and it absolutely stopped us dead.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my word, and you could not take your eyes off it. And it's this young woman seated, it's actually a place in England where he's painted this. It's the end of a corridor, and she could have been photographed or painted yesterday.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's just the magic of paint and the creativity just creates, has immortalised this young woman sitting there. I mean, you can feel the bulk of her legs under the dress. You can feel her gaze. You can the softer weight of her hair. It's just paint.
Yeah. That is stunning. I've never seen that painting before in my life.
And we're both looking at the moment at a printout. Wait till you see this on the big screen. It is, and it's almost it almost feels like a horror film a little bit. She looks a little bit scary. What
I love is the way he's done her hair. There's no, it's so subtle how that's finished into the woodwork.
Yeah, well, the lines of the woodwork are deliberately being played off in the lines of the dress and the lines of the hair.
The dress is absolutely, it's just gorgeous. Is that smocking at the front there?
I mean, this is why
it's really hard to see.
He was the greatest portrait painter of his time.
Right.
And, people were queuing up to be painted by him in their finest dresses. It's just the most brilliant picture. And, when we set ourselves this challenge of your top 3 paintings of the year,
it's not there.
So much to choose from. But I thought, which one had the most instantaneous, drop-dead, impact upon me, where I'm like, oh my word. And
that was it.
There's this one.
But so with El Jaleo, that was not in the exhibition that you went to, because that's in a room on its own, which is what I wanted to ask you.
So that's not in the exhibition because it doesn't really reflect fashion.
No.
So it's not relevant to this particular exhibition.
Also, I see.
So you have the Museum of Fine Arts, and actually, a few hundred meters from there, you have the Stuart Gardner Museum, which is the most amazing place. I mean, it's like a Spanish courtyarded palace. It's famous because in 70, you get the date right. Anyway, in 1973 maybe, they had all these paintings stolen, including a Vermeer.
Oh, okay.
And they've never been recovered.
Oh, really?
Rembrandt's only Seascape. Anyway, so it's well known for that, unfortunately, but it had this extraordinary collection. So Sargent does this painting for her, and she actually builds a space for it, which I think Sargent has a role in, and it's kind of in this. You have the main courtyard, and then just to the side there's like an alley, like a corridor that leads to this little alcove, really, in which this painting is hung. I'm sure they never ever would want to lend it because you'd have a big gap.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure there's some, I'm sure they get on perfectly well, the two institutions, but they are next door to each other. There's probably a bit of rivalry.
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, what they did, which is a bit more sensible, was that they, I don't know to what extent there was a conversation between the two institutions, but they were doing their own kind of John Singer Sargent mini exhibition, which was complementary to the one that was playing in Museum of Fine Arts.
So this piece that you've picked then, Phil, who is this lady? Do we know who she is? Or
well,
is it just...
We do know, and she was a real person, but you tell me why you chose that one.
Oh, I just love it. I love it so much. It's just... We had a real laugh when we did that podcast. If you remember, we kind of got into some weird stuff with the empty chair and everything. But for me, it's just, you can be in that bar room, wherever they are, having a little drink. You would walk in and you would instantly feel that you could be part of that group. They're all playing their instruments, they're singing, they're clapping, and you could just clap along and get involved. And I love the way it goes along that line, and then we think we're children at the end.
The little girl, yeah.
And I don't know, you must have seen them obviously really, really close. And just the, whoa, yeah, whoa. I just love it. I just love it so much. It's just such a fun picture. And yeah, I love the empty chair. I think we kind of thought about, it kind of represents people that may not be there. And
well, the empty chair with the orange is quite
the orange,
fun,
and then that guitar above. But yeah, it's
maybe it's somebody that's the guy's asleep, but also that.
You said that, but was he asleep? Because I think he's just got his head back laughing.
Oh, maybe.
I mean, you've got to go something to be asleep in that.
That's true.
I can imagine it being quite noisy.
But again, the way her dress is painted. I mean, one of the 5 costumes that they have there is a flamenco dress.
Oh, they're the real ones from the paintings that he...
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's amazing.
So why was he so much into fashion? Was he because of the women he painted? They just bought their own clothes along, or
he would sometimes they would. There's the House of Worth, for example, which is like a big fashion house at the time.
Oh,
so
right.
Sometimes the women would come with their latest House of Worth dress.
Oh, okay. Oh, amazing.
Sometimes he would say, "No, I want to change it." I don't know that he would necessarily have a cupboard full of dresses. I suspect that would be too much, but he would certainly have a part in what they would wear and how they would wear it, and then how he would paint it.
Yeah, brilliant.
And he obviously just had a real skill for it. In fact, he got bored of doing it because he was just being asked all the time to paint.
It's like his bread and butter, isn't it?
But what's also interesting is that, the women are not so much in this one, although this is often flamenco dancers I've always assumed are quite powerful women.
Oh, yeah.
But in his portraits, one has to remember that these are not always husbands saying, "Paint my portrait." Sometimes the women themselves are commissioning it. These are often women who are strong in their own worlds. They might be business women or creative women, or
so they could command the room.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is what she's doing and what that other your sitter's doing. I mean, I love that painting.
I mean, she's only 17, this girl.
Oh, really?
But, you know, obviously moderately wealthy family, and I do know that they're hiring this manor house. So I assume the family have commissioned Sargent to paint this.
Right, okay.
But she may only be 17, but she too is definitely holding the room. Mm-hmm. She's got character about her. Mm-hmm. Oh, isn't that interesting that we both end up with Sargent, John Singer Sargent?
Yeah, I was really, really unsure as to whether to... I just thought, I just love it. It just, you know, makes me think of my mum and dad, because they were real fun, and they would have been right in that room, clapping away,
do you know what?
Singing.
It's a good one for Christmas, isn't it?
It is, that's what I thought, you know.
Got your orient, because every Christmas for me is Satsumas.
I've got stacks of them. Although I just kind
bit of dancing, bit of
keep
noise.
it simple, isn't it? You know,
kids
Christmas,
mucking about,
messing about. Yeah.
There's your uncle asleep in the corner.
I love that uncle asleep. He's not asleep.
There's always brothers.
There's always someone that could play the guitar
or not.
And my nan used to get the accordion out.
Three,
oh Lord, yeah, that was.
And then you've always got the girl in the party dress sitting at the end.
Cool, absolutely. So
there you go.
So funny.
So those are our 3 paintings of the year, and as we move into 2024, we're already planning the next season. So who knows what next year will throw up. So
yeah, goodness.
Have a wonderful Christmas. I hope you all get lots of art books. More importantly, I hope you give each other lots of Seventh Art DVDs, downloads and streaming. Encourage your friends to listen to the podcast. And above all, get to as many galleries as you possibly can.
Are you going to ring the bell, Phil?
Oh, yeah.
At the end?
Of course.
Sorry, it's going.
Teamwork. Teamwork.
I love it.
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Thank you for listening to the Painting of the Week podcast. For more information, please visit our website at seventh-art.com or contact us by emailing info@seventh-art.com. See you next time.